Greetings and good Tuesday morning, this 30th of May 2023, third decade of the 21st century. Not only is it still the third decade of the 21st century, but it is also the day after Memorial Day, which, aside from it being Memorial Day for somebody who served, the fact that we are just a day and a half away, or well, 2 days away from being done with May. We will be in the 6th month of the year. I feel like I say this every year, but for some reason, I feel like this year is going by a little bit faster. As in, each year after a certain age, they go by a little bit faster. And it just amazes me at like, holy crap, we're almost in June already. It's like, Jesus, we just turned 2023. And then, if you're also new to my channel, I always open with the fact that it's the third decade of the 21st century to sort of shine light on the fact that when you stop and take a moment to think about what sort of things are in the zeitgeist, what sort of things we're entertaining, what things we're talking about, versus where people had predicted us to be. And I say that more so from my socio-political angle when I do talk about that stuff. But in this context, I'm going to stay geeky, nerdy. And if you're also new to my channel, I venture between nerdy, and geeky. Nerdy and geeky. Wow. There we go. I got it. And getting a little meta on certain themes. And then I also have my more socio-political stuff. And if you leave a comment, I always like to read, react, and respond. One of my loyal viewers who does take the time to respond to my videos, Stace Catalan out of Texas, responded in my previous video. Bethany Joy, Sophia, and Hillary have all talked about how they were pitted against each other by the Creator. So I was, long story short, we somehow got on the topic of the One Tree Hill television show where the Creator was a bit of a creep. You know, objectified the female actresses and apparently was not very good to them. And it's sad, and of course, with me getting meta, I often wonder, you know, like, was it one of those situations where the poor guy was socially awkward in high school and college, and now that he's got some form of power, some sort of authority, he's abusing it? Like, he's treating Hillary and Bethany and Sophia like all the girls that were less than kind to him, so now that he's got the authority. I'm not saying it's right, but I'm somebody who likes to see if there's something I can understand, if there's an angle of approach that I can sort of walk a mile in their shoes and kind of understand where they're coming from. I'm not saying I agree, I'm not saying I condone, but you know, I often just wonder if there's a potential opportunity to understand what's going on there. You know, and sometimes you don't see what you're doing until it's too late. And sometimes you're not aware of what you're doing until it's too late. You know, perhaps the Creator, I just mentioned his name last week, but anyways, maybe he is a rational person who can understand right from wrong, and maybe he just couldn't see what he was doing. Or maybe he could. Maybe he's just an evil prick. However, the majority of female cast members on that show were extremely good looking. You know, and I'm sorry, I'm not one that really gets into certain dynamics. I'm pretty much straight down the middle, black and white, guy, girl. You know, I'm not really into that sort. I'd almost should call her a co-host, but Stace, who does respond to my channel quite a bit, I might as well just call her a co-host. That's more her territory, so the yin and the yang. It's not my territory. But that being said, all of the female antagonists and protagonists that were on the show were all extremely attractive, and I'm assuming that's a lot of why they were hired, and that they had to maintain a certain image. And you know, I can't imagine what that's like. I've never been somebody who's been considered physically attractive to the point of objectivity. I've never been someone to be objectified. I don't have your atypical classical looks with the tremendously gifted body. So it's not exactly a world I can relate to. But yeah, just it's a shitty thing. And to make matters even worse, when the show decided to change directions, I don't know how many people stayed and how many people left, but my wife and I, we left. So I'll leave it at that. What I did also want to talk about on the more nerdy, geekier stuff, over this weekend, this long 3-day weekend for many people, North Carolina hosted the Carolina Fear Fest. And they brought out a handful of celebrities. Some are possibly better known than others. Some are probably lesser known because they're always in costume, so you don't really know who it is because they're in costume. Case in point, one of the gentlemen that showed up was in costume. I gotta look him up now. Give me a second to pause this real quick. Alright, sorry about that. So, Brett Wagner was walking around with a Suicidal Tendencies vest on, and being a fan of heavy metal and thrash from the 80s and 90s, I didn't know who he was. So I just casually walked up to him as he was just walking around. I was like, hey, are you on drugs or do you just want a Pepsi? And he kind of gave me a look like, huh. And I was like, alright, well, fuck you then. Granted, I didn't realize he was a celebrity guest, so I don't know if he took it a different way. I don't know. For our money, though, there were certain people we were there to see. I personally wanted to see David Naughton. If you're not familiar, if you have no idea, David Naughton played David in the American Werewolf in London. It's quite a hit movie. It's very popular in the horror genre, but he was the American Werewolf in London. And as a huge fan of the werewolf genre, it was beyond cool to meet him. And I'll post the photo in there. And then, of course, because I was a fan of the werewolf genre, I got to meet Dee Wallace. My wife and my daughter got to meet Dee Wallace. Now, Dee Wallace has been in so much more to include within the horror genre. She's been in Cujo. She's been in Critters. She was also the mom in E.T. She also was in Supernatural. She was also in Grimm and countless other things. We also got to meet Derek Mears. Now, Derek Mears is a bit of a character actor. He's 6'5". He's been in a lot of things as a specific character. Most recently, people may know him as Swamp Thing if you had a chance to watch the 10-episode short-lived series Swamp Thing, where he was Swamp Thing. But he was also Jason in the 2009 remake of Friday the 13th, as well as several other characters. He was phenomenal. He was just a ball of energy, almost like... My general impression was either one of two things. Either he was high as fuck on something, or he was beyond delighted that people actually wanted to meet him and appreciated his work. He was beyond excited. He was so fun to meet, very, very personable. Dee Wallace was equally as delightful, and so was David Naughton. But as far as like the energy, you couldn't top Derek Mears' energy. Dee Wallace was, oh my god. I'm almost ashamed to talk about it, but I mean, she's like old enough to be my mom. I mean, she is. I mean, she was in her late 20s when I came into this world. Yeah, she was in her late 20s when I came into this world. So yeah, she very well could have been my mom. She was a delight to meet. And then we also got to meet Heather Matarazzo. Most people may know her from being Jamie Kennedy's sister in Scream. Let me see if I could find her here. Because it says... yeah, and she's been in some other things. Mostly kind of like teen movies from the 90s, early 2000s. We got to meet her. She was just sweet as sugar. Oh my god. The one person we didn't get a chance to meet, and my wife and I really wanted to meet him because of his character on Teen Wolf was Seth Gilliam. Now, most people might know him from The Walking Dead, but he, for whatever reason, we just kept missing him. There was a handful of cosplayers we got to see. I took a couple of photos with some cosplayers, and there were a few other people that showed up that we didn't get a chance, because tragically, I don't mean to be a jerk, but I just didn't recognize him that much. I mean, Robert Mukes was there. He's always dressed up in character. Jennifer Banco was there. Unfortunately, Jennifer Banco is always one of those hot blondes that gets killed off. R.A. Mihailoff was there. He's always been in character, so a lot of people don't know who he is because he's always in makeup. Barbara Crampton was there. I think she's also one of those hot blondes that's in a lot of those horror flicks because of her good looks. Troy James was there. Troy James is another one of those character actors known for his, well, his flexibility. And then, of course, Ray Santiago was there. Dana DeLorenzo was there. They're in the new Ash vs. the Evil Dead series. And then Ian McCullough was there. Ian's also one of those character actors who's always in costume, so a lot of people didn't recognize them either. And then, of course, Tara Reid was there. Tara, God, I hope you don't watch this. Ugh. She was there, and if she is who I saw, she looked rough. If that's who I saw, she looked rough. And her table was empty. And I don't know what, I'm not a convention connoisseur. I don't get to go to a lot of these things. But I'm kind of curious as to how the promoters decide on who they're going to bring in and why, because several other people that did show up, their tables were empty. They were empty. Like, you know, I don't want to get into the names, but they were empty. But I feel like I'm falling down the rabbit hole. It feels awkward, and I personally feel bad when there's a celebrity who had a moment, you know, in the spotlight, but for whatever reason they're not shining as bright right now, and they get ignored. I don't know a better way to say it, but they get ignored, and I don't know. I just feel awkward, and I just feel awkward for it. And it happens at GalaxyCon. It happens at other smaller conventions. But it was fun. It wasn't a bad drive. Overall, it was a decent experience. We spent some money, but getting to meet some of the celebrities, like getting to meet David Naughton and getting his autograph and getting a picture with him, getting to meet Dee Wallace and getting her autograph and getting a picture with her, getting to meet Derek Mears and getting his autograph and getting a picture with him, and then same with Heather Matarazzo. I mean, unfortunately, I didn't get to meet Seth Gilliam, but, you know, neither one of us are dead, so perhaps, you know, there's still time. You know, the conventions are, to me, they're a lot of fun. You know, some people go to Disneyland, they go to exotic locations. Our family, we really enjoy the con. We enjoy seeing the cosplayers. I personally enjoy getting to meet some of these celebrities. We enjoy the panels. We enjoy some of the other things, like there's a family that had fully restored a 67 Impala called Thor. My wife and I got to take photos inside of Thor. That was pretty cool. So I don't have pictures of those I can upload yet. Stace, I know if you're watching this, they're on my Facebook. I'll try to find a way to get them out there. No, they're not on my Facebook. Sorry. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. So much so that my wife's like, yeah, we've got to restore our own. But the conventions they're a lot of fun. And if it's not something you've done, what I can tell you is this. My first ever convention was GalaxyCon. I think back then it was SuperCon or something else in 2019. I got to meet Summer Glau. In 2019, there were so many other celebrities. And I felt so awkward and just so embarrassed that I was like, well, you know what? How many times am I going to get to meet Summer Glau? And we only went for the one day. We went for a Saturday. So we went and I met Summer Glau. I got a professional photo because I didn't understand how it all worked. So I didn't realize Summer Glau was doing table photos. I don't know why they call them selfies. If somebody else grabs your camera and takes a photo on your camera, isn't that just a picture? Isn't a selfie like when you physically hold the camera or your phone or whatever the device it is, and like when you're doing it, that's a selfie? Whatever. They're called table selfies nonetheless. But I didn't know the etiquette that some celebrities will do the professional photo ops and some celebrities will do the table photos as well, where some celebrities won't do the photo ops but the table selfies, and some celebrities will only do the photo ops. I quickly learned that lesson. What I will say is this: if there's somebody you want to meet, if there's somebody you appreciate, if there's a genre or whatever, don't be embarrassed, don't be afraid. Whether or not it's a good experience or a bad experience, whether they're as delightful as some people I've met, or they're just kind of like, you know, not very personable, do it anyways. You know, find a way to overcome the fear, find a way to overcome the anxiety, the embarrassment, and just do it. It's a once-in-a-lifetime experience, and you may not get to do it again, and you don't want to live in regret. And, you know, I mean, if you're a geek, if you're a nerd, just do it. And what I've also learned is when I got to meet David Naughton, he's like, you know, it's not that difficult of a question. I was like, yes, sir, I realize it's not a difficult question. Because he was asking what I wanted him to put on my poster. And I was like, I just don't get to meet you that often. So I apologize if I'm a bit starstruck. But I don't know how many times I've watched American Werewolf in London, you know, where I'm finally getting to meet you. So yeah, I apologize if I can't figure out what to put on the poster. And he goes, that's very kind of you to say. And he's like, how about this? And I was like, yes. And my wife was the same way. She's like, yeah, you know, it's not like we are in your world. And oh my God, Dee Wallace. Oh my God, was she phenomenal. And it was the same thing. I was like, I'm sorry, ma'am. He's like, why do you keep calling me ma'am? And it's like, because that's the right thing to do. That's the polite thing to do. Yeah, it was great. Oh my God! And the family that had the baby replica Thor, the '67 Impala, they were terribly nice. Some of the vendors were phenomenal. Just great people to talk to. The cosplayers were awesome. So if it's something you're into, you know, find a way to get over it and do it. And if you want to talk more about nerdier, geekier stuff, leave a comment. We can generate conversation that way. All right, we can, you know, you can find a safe place to talk about your nerdy and geeky obsessions. We can do that here. All right, trust me, Stace and I will do the socio-political, we'll do the nerdy and geeky. If socio-political is not your thing, then stay here. Leave a comment and we'll just keep this thing going, and we'll do the nerdy and geekier stuff. And if you do, I promise I will read, respond, and react to your comment. All right, and if you do, you're awesome. Till next time, stay safe out there and keep it nerdy.